Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. Commissioner, if you're okay if we proceed and call the meeting to order.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I am Commissioner Paul Savas, co-chair of C4. I'm calling the meeting to order, and my colleague who'll be running the meeting tonight is co-chair Mayor Hodson. Mayor Hodson, you want to start with intros?
Sure can. Good evening. How is everyone doing? This is my looks like my partner for this evening, my cat Leo. So yeah, so we'll start with quick pledge of allegiance there, Jamie. If you want to throw up a flag for us, we'll get going on that. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We'll make a trip around the screen here. Mr. Milch.
Michael Milch, Mayor of Gladstone.
Good evening, sir. Good to see you. Mr. Gornick.
Paul Gornick from the Oak Lodge Water Board, representing sanitary districts.
And Miss French.
Sherry French, Clackamas River Water, representing water districts.
Wonderful. Mr. O'Neill.
Mayor O'Neill, representing the city of Wilsonville.
Excellent. Miss Pratt.
Valerie Pratt, Twelton City Council President.
Perfect. Mr. Gronke, long time no see. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm fine, considering my age. Representing the citizens of Clackamas County.
Perfect. Mr. Brashear.
Good evening, everyone. Dwight Brashear. I am the Transit Director for the City of Wilsonville, representing the urban transit providers.
Wonderful. Mr. Cernak.
I'm a director with the Hamlet of Beaver Creek, representing CPOs.
Wonderful. Good to see you, sir. Clean shaven, got a haircut, Mayor Buck.
Well, I'm not clean shaven, but I can see how maybe it looks that way in the sun. But Joe Buck, Mayor of Lake Oswego. Good evening.
Perfect. Mr. Marl.
Good evening, Adam Marl, Oregon City Commissioner.
Perfect. Welcome, sir. Mr. Hilliard.
Yes, good evening. Mark Hilliard, Hamlet of Beaver Creek, representing the Hamlets.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott Kaiser.
Mayor Scott Kaiser, City of Molalla.
Excellent. Miss Lewis.
Christine Lewis, Metro Council District 2.
Wonderful. Good to see you. Mr. West.
Ben West, Clackamas County Commissioner, and also not clean shaven.
It's a healthy looking beard there, Mr. West. Miss Baumgardner.
Hello, Mary Baumgardner, Council President, City of Westland.
Okay. Mr. Wilson.
Hello, Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager and proud Texas Rangers fan since we saw that good baseball start.
Excellent. Mr. Sheldon.
Hey, good evening. Richard Sheldon, Sandy City Council.
Perfect. And last but not least, Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Vahid Brown, Housing and Community Development, Clackamas County.
Perfect. Thank you all for being here this evening. Those of you, will just make a quick rundown of those. We got a number of attendees tonight. Brendan, Council President Vermillion, Councilor Ann Shelvin, Dana Webb, Mr. Boland, Jamie Stasny, Jeff Owen, John Sarah, Joseph Marat, Karen Burig, Kevin McCrane, and Will Wilson. I think that's everybody that's in the attendees hanging out with us this evening. Looks like spring is here, which is good, at least today. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I need a motion to approve the minutes. I think we've got enough people to do that.
So moved.
Second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments, edits, changes? Seeing none, anyone opposed, say nay. All right, minutes are approved from the March 6th meeting. All right, we're gonna roll right into supportive housing services update, and that is Mr. Vahid Brown. And then looks like playing cleanup is Commissioner Ben West. So Vahid, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Jamie, do you want to share my slides for me? Thank you. Great, thanks for the time, everyone. I'm going to provide a brief update about supportive housing services, just some program highlights as we are in Q3 of year 4 of the program, and have some Q1 and 2 progress updates to report out and some current initiatives underway. Some pictures of our system here. At the top is the groundbreaking of the Vuela affordable housing and permanent supportive housing building. We've got a bunch of my staff and our community partners at a housing first aid training on the bottom, and a housing authority resident services supported free food market, which is conducted on a regular basis. Let's go to the next slide. So these are the current fiscal year 24-25 program outcomes through the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year. These are related to our annual goals. So every year, the program, the 3 counties determine their annual work plan goals, the targets they're going to try to hit through that year, and they're related to these activities. So we have a goal in this fiscal year of supporting 230 units of shelter by the end of the year. We're 93% towards that goal by the end of Q2 with 214 units of shelter. We're at 96.5% of our fiscal year goal for eviction preventions. 965 people had their housing sustained and avoided an eviction out of a goal of 1,000 such households receiving that service. And we are, with respect to housing placements, 285 households were transitioned out of homelessness into housing. 151 of those were moved into rapid rehousing. So this is up to 2 years of rent assistance and supportive case management. The goal is 160, so we're 94% of that goal. 135 households were placed into permanent supportive housing in the first 2 fiscal years. That's out of 275 of 49% towards our goals. We're about right at the halfway mark. Picture of Katiana here, who was a person experiencing homelessness in our community, was connected with by one of our partners and transitioned to the Veterans Village and is now receiving support there with their healthcare needs and making plans for their forward progress. One of the many people that are served and have supported by the programs funded by the Supportive Housing Services measure. Going to the next slide. Talking about some of the system optimization efforts underway in this fiscal year. Resource navigators. So we have a nationally award-winning coordinated housing access program, CHA. And this year we've added a team to the coordinated housing access program, the resource navigation team. So when someone calls the coordinated housing access and they are recently homeless and are not chronically homeless and may be able to resolve their homelessness with some really engaged creative problem solving, access to some resources to pay for things like a car repair or one bill that if it were unpaid, otherwise this family would lose their housing. So these are really kind of trying to prevent people from ending up on wait lists for services for folks who are experiencing long-term homelessness. So the resource navigation team is 4 staff within the Coordinated Housing Access Program, within the CHA program. Have had some great success so far in this pilot as we've started it this year. 87 households have received resource navigation, intervening in their housing crisis and resolving it before they become long-term homeless. An example is a person who I'll call John, who was working full-time as a cook but lost his home after a job change. He took shelter in a tent, resource navigators worked with John on a new apartment application and helped him with temporary shelter in a motel room. They were able to pay his security deposit, and John moved into his new apartment in January, just 40 days after being connected to the resource navigation team. We also have a health and housing integration team funded by the Supportive Housing Services measure. This is to further one of the main goals of SHS, which is to further the integration of the homelessness response system with the behavioral and physical healthcare systems. So we have a team dedicated to that work. Recently, in the last quarter, we saw the launch of the Medicaid demonstration waiver and the availability of health-related social needs benefits for Medicaid members. So people who are Medicaid members and are experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness and have certain qualifying medical conditions qualify for up to 6 months of rent assistance and other Medicaid paid benefits. So this is Oregon is not the only state, but it's one of very few that have implemented a Medicaid waiver for health-related social needs related to housing. So we've launched that in Clackamas County. This team helped really bring that forward. We have 3 nonprofit partners who are delivering Medicaid-funded benefits to people in our system now. We also have a community paramedic. That's Jamie, pictured in the inset photograph there. She works with our department and funded by the measure. She's joining our outreach team as a paramedic, meeting people who are experiencing homelessness where they are, providing low barrier healthcare and connecting them to housing supports and other healthcare supports. And then we have a Move Forward initiative that's getting ready to launch. That recently the Board of County Commissioners approved the utilization of some of our one-time carryover funds to support this. And this is a suite of programs and services meant to support people who are receiving rent assistance long-term from the SHS program, to increase their incomes with workforce system supports, job training, barrier removals. Folks may have barriers to entering the job force, like old criminal records that could be expunged, or a lack of documentation, this sort of thing. It will also fund a savings account, so that when people increase their rent and then they increase their contribution to their rent, and our contribution to their rent decreases, that decrease in our contribution will go into an escrow account. We'll match it. So over a 3-year period, people could save as much as $12,000 into this escrow account that would be available to them to then move on and maybe be part of a down payment for a house, or help them move into independent living. Let's see, one more slide, or is that my last slide? Some new infrastructure. Yeah, thank you. So we've got several exciting projects underway right now, and some of them to open soon. A stabilization center in the city of Milwaukee. There's a picture on the top there of one of the architectural designs. This is this building where will house 2 programs, a behavioral
Did you freeze up?
Well, while the heat is waiting to come back on, Commissioner West, would you be interested in making a few remarks about the Clackamas Village or the SHS?
I can pick up where you left off, I think. And I think Vahid has already alluded to this. As Clackamas County, we've been very purposeful in building out an entire care continuum that has assets and the infrastructure necessary that did not exist a few years ago to provide the care that people need, no matter where they're at in their recovery process. And these systems, like with CHA, they all speak to each other. There's warm handoffs. They're not isolated from one another, and they're collaborative and all kind of working as a well-oiled well-oiled machine, and that's part of the recovery-oriented system of care that we've established in Clackamas County. We've learned a lot in the last couple of years. We have a lot of places to still grow and do better, and we're always looking to fill those gaps. But here's some of the infrastructure that is supporting the recovery-oriented system of care. We have the stabilization center in Milwaukee, as he was talking about. If you're having a mental health crisis and you need supports and to stabilize, what happens, you can go there for 23 hours. You can be assessed by a healthcare professional, a licensed healthcare professional, to help you stabilize and to be a place to get centered and to be well. Also in that building is short-term recovery stay, where somebody could be in transitional type housing or respite housing, even for a few months, as they begin to get stabilized to move on to the next place within their care, within the care continuum that allows them to move forward in their pathway to recovery. We also have the Clackamas Village. It is basically the Veterans Village on steroids 2.0 and improved upon. It was just featured on the local news as an innovative housing community that allows people to get the care they need within a community that supports recovery. I believe there's 24 units. There's community spaces, shared kitchen. It's right next door to the Veterans Village, and worked really well with the businesses that share that in a close proximity to make this a success. And we learned a lot from the Veterans Village. Now, this is not for vets specifically, but the Veterans Village, this was scalable, and this is kind of the next version of that. We have the resource centers coming also into the city of Milwaukee and Molalla, and then we do permanent supportive housing. And what else is going to be new soon, hopefully we'll break ground soon on it, that you guys have all heard about, is the multi-acreage recovery campus. So there's a lot of great new infrastructure that we're building that's working well, even in the system that we already have. I don't know if that covers that slide pretty well. I don't know if there's a, and then I don't know if I'm going to give an update on SHS now.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. And smashed it on covering the built
Yes.
infrastructure.
We appreciate that he is one of the best assets in Clackamas County, and so I just want to give him a quick shout out. We really appreciate Vahid's work and collaboration. He is an expert, and he also has the heart to match that. So thank you, Vahid. We're sorry you froze up and we lost you for a moment there. A lot is happening with SHS. Let's do a quick brief overview. If you are in the metro area, the taxpayers in the Tri-County area passed the supportive housing service tax. Is a high income earner tax. We won't get into that. That tax goes isn't really to go to housing, but it's to go towards the supportive services necessary to help people that struggle with homelessness for a variety of reasons. It can be substance abuse, mental health, economic, whatever reason. Often we are now seeing more and more that substance abuse disorder, behavioral health needs are really prominent with this population, but it's not necessarily totally about that either. I right now am co-chairing with President Peterson, the president's task force to have to look at SHS again to try to not only just salvage it, but try to get on the right track and rebuild trust with the voters. It's a regional effort. And so it's been an honor to have Clackamas County's voice at that table, and to have the ability to co-chair a really important task force with President Peterson. And it has actually been really collaborative and really great. I will say this, I just met with a work group from the Metro mayors. That includes mayors that's the mayor of the city of Portland, the mayor of Gresham, the mayor of Beaverton's in this group, the mayor of Sherwood, Joe Buck is representing Clackamas County, Lisa Beatty from Milwaukee is representing Clackamas County. So there's 6 mayors in the Metro kind of consortium of mayors. And we had a meeting yesterday to try to figure out how to collaborate and move forward with the SHS funding. And there's been some tension. There has been a lot of failures with this funding. There's been a lot of problems out of Multnomah County specifically. And how do we salvage these resources and make sure they're effectively used by also rebuilding trust, not just with all the different governmental entities, the cities, the counties, and Metro, but how do we build voter trust again? And that's something that's really lacking. The mayors are really honest with me, and I agree with them. They've had a bajillion meetings, meeting by fatigue. What are these meetings doing? How many vision statements do we have to do? When are we going to get to the nut and bolts and fix this and fix these problems? And we're going to try to get there within this work group. I think we are going to get there where we talk about structural changes, the mechanics of the changes. We're through Clackamas County's leadership, really, we are now really pushing the audits that were required within the measure. When the SHS tax passed, there were supposed to be annual audits. There's been one perfunctory audit that wasn't really great by Metro. It wasn't enough. We haven't had those annual audits. We've had a lot of struggles and negative media attention. But Clackamas County, even though we're doing great, said, hey, be critical of us, look under the hood, tell us where our gaps are, even if, we're one of the better performing counties and better performing governments, hopefully to bring along the rest of the Tri-County area to submit to these audits. I am seeing a lot of momentum with that. We're going to talk about that in our next Monday meeting for this task force. We're going to get a little more into the nuts and bolts of what the framework of a care continuum should look like in agreement within the region. What do these care continuums look like, and how do we not stay siloed, and how do we operate regionally while also respecting local autonomy? And we're going to still have to have a conversation about what is our shared mission and belief system that we're operating under, so we have a roadmap to follow and know the route in which we're going. I will tell you this, it is a very unique vibe right now. I don't know if the region on this issue's hit a little bit of a rock bottom. I don't know if we're all jolted significantly because of the failures of Multnomah County and their significant budget shortfalls, and how Portland is feeling isolated and incapable of being able to work with Multnomah County. I think it's also a combination of how we have been absolutely stellar here in Clackamas County comparatively. And so our voice is valued. And we're also really debating for the first time ever some different philosophical beliefs around where did we get it wrong with all this housing first stuff, and what is a recovery model like, and why is it working in Gresham? Why is it working in Clackamas? Why aren't we scaling these things that are working at a local level? And uniquely to Clackamas County is the relationship that we have forged with our cities. I can tell you this. One of the best pleasures of being a county commissioner the last 2 years is the ability to work with Mayor Buck on this issue, and his leadership within the cities and the relationships that he's helping forge as a local mayor. I know some people don't think Mayor Buck and I should be friends, but I think we're becoming friends, and I appreciate his leadership and partnership in this from the city's level. And Clackamas County from day one has tried to partner well with the cities on this. We got to do better in our rural areas with Malala and Estacada, and we're trying to get better there. And there's some gaps there that we're going to grow with and build some trust with our rural cities. But overall, comparatively to the rest of the state, we're doing really great. And we're a really leading influencing voice right now on how SHS is going to get saved and not just sunset and have a financial catastrophe where we don't have the funding that we need to support this population. I see a lot of urgency and a lot of great smart ideas coming from our cities, and so that's been an honor to do that. A lot of exciting stuff is happening. Pay attention to the SHS task force. I know it's more meetings than Mayor Buck. I apologize, but I'm trying to make them productive. And I'm really listening, especially to the meeting that you pulled together with the rest of Joe Buck. Pulling that meeting together was very valuable. And so I brought that I pulled an emergency meeting with Metro this morning, and we had an 1.5-hour meeting to pivot to be more responsive to that meeting that we had. Joe, I want you to know that if we didn't have that meeting with the other mayors, I don't think I could have made this next meeting on Monday more productive. And so that was essential and quick turnaround. And we did have an extended meeting with all the staff to make a pivot. So I want you to know that. I hope you, and please let me know feedback wise, Mayor Buck, about what your experience is on Monday. I'll answer any questions if you have any questions about SHS, but it's going really, it's really difficult, but I have a little bit of hope with how the conversations have changed a little bit. It's taken a long time to get here and too long, but I'm really excited that Clackamas County and our cities are kind of, I think, leading a lot of this conversation right now. I don't know if anybody has a question, I'll answer it, but that's my update.
Mark Kaiser.
I was just curious on all the projects that are happening in Clackamas County. Have we done any measurement on the sustainability once these get established, or keeping them running? Because, from what I'm hearing is there's a lot. The county's budget is stretched pretty thin with the new courthouse, and so I'm curious with these new innovative ideas coming through, how sustainable all of these are going to be into the future.
That's a great question. The money that it goes to the courthouse and the general fund obligation does not impact the services directly that we're doing here. And what we're doing a lot of is building up the capital and then having other entities run them. So like the recovery campus, we can make seed money and make that and build the capital for it. But then for FOIA's coming in to actually run the programming and long-term sustainability of that. So our obligation will not be to actually running that and the operational part of it, but using the funding to also build out capital. For SHS directly, it's important that we prove concept and build trust with the voters and then begin to see us make a massive impact in this arena so that we don't lose their trust and then this sunsets in a way that becomes catastrophic or we have to ramp down what we've been able to build. But when we have SHS dollars, it frees up additional money and funds to the rural part of the county that weren't there previously. And so it helps us leverage money in a more effective way. But the courthouse specifically and the general fund obligations are not at risk right now because of what we're building out in the system we're building out in with our supportive housing services.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yeah, I have one comment and then a question. So the comment is for some of you that are new to C4 or relatively new to C4, I just want to say that, you know, coming from our last meeting about the purpose of C4 and the things that we have adjusted to and created a forum for, this topic here, I think has been part of our success in Clackamas County. So we've used this forum and Mayor Buck's been here the whole run of that discussion, as some of you all have too, Councilor Lewis and others. So just a plug for the great work and collaboration here at C4, and it's extended out into the areas that Commissioner West is speaking to and the mayor. So we have been a great example and, you know, just a value add for what we're doing. My Commissioner West, my question is status on is the conversation, I've been buried in transportation stuff, but is the conversation about reductions of the tax rate still in play? I just kind of want to build on Mayor Kaiser's point, the sustainability. I mean, absent this funding, I have a deep concern about our ability to sustain some of the infrastructure we're building. So can you tell us what the trends are right now?
The trend is that's not even in the conversation right now. The trend is we have to reevaluate why we've messed this up so bad and we can't just nibble around the edges. Behind the scenes with President Peterson, it's like we have totally approached this in a way that wasn't successful, and we have to be reflective about what our habits and our patterns were and the ideas that we brought to the table that informed our actions that aren't working. And then we have to really start to look at the structural changes of what the actual care continuum looks like and how this money is going to be spent. Will this lead potentially to a ballot measure? Yes. Do I think it may not have anything to do with a rate reduction? I think we might not even get to a rate reduction. I think it's more about pivoting, making hard policy pivots in how we bring accountability, how we make things more effective and efficient, how we make sure that systems aren't siloed from one another, how we bring better transparency. So we're getting more down to like the nuts and bolts, hopefully, and the shared belief systems and where we have common ground. And then going off of and then building that trust so that when we go to the voters and maybe have to ask for an extension or we have to make any pivots or changes, we have that ability to. But we're not talking about rate changes right now. There are like maybe we can get to where there's a ballot measure, but that's not even set in stone right now either. Right now it's like, how do we fix this? How do we rebuild our reputation? And where is it working? And how do we have these hard conversations? That's really where we're at. When I say we're stripping it to the studs, maybe it took too long to get here, but that's the conversation between my co-president President Peterson and myself. And there is a lack of trust between governmental agencies. How do we hold Multnomah County accountable without the entire system falling apart and engage with more credible entities to step in when necessary? How do we make sure that we're doing the basics with transparency and auditing? How do we have a shared common like vision statement where we can agree where we can start from? Because there has been entrenched value systems and policies and that have got us where we're going. And I think there's a number of electeds that are like, it isn't working. And there is a tone change starting to happen. Will that come back on the table? Probably. I don't know if it's going to be a rate reduction. Will I think an extension to some extent maybe have to come back to the table if we can get past this point? I maybe see that. I don't necessarily see it. And I don't know what that looks like right now, but I'll report back.
Mayor Buck, then Commissioner Lewis, and then we're going to move on.
Thanks, Mayor Hodson. Yeah, just to build on those comments, I mean, this really has been a great effort, and it's really, thanks to, I mean, Commissioner West has been great, including the mayor's voices in this conversation, specifically to this work group, and then President Peterson and Metro have been great, just bringing more local voices on board in this process. And Commissioner West, we did, Mayor Lisa Beatty and I met with Metro staff today around the work group, and yes, it was clear they had met with you earlier in the day. They were saying,
I told you I would champion those concerns.
so that was really important. But they also had a couple of the political consultants on the call, which was kind of a surprise. And, I mean, naturally there's this element of like, well, we do have to pass this measure. And it was a little too like political talk to me, when I feel like everyone around the table is more engaged in wanting to talk about the mechanics of this system and what the gaps are and what's working. And it was more of the message like, well, we got to get it on the ballot before people, start hating it more. And it's like, that is not the message, right? And we've always said, if we cannot get local elected, all of us, like local elected officials and local leaders on board with this and get their faith in the program, then how on earth are we going to sell it to the voters? And it certainly can't be, we need to sell it before it gets worse and they really don't support it. I mean, that's absolute nonsense. We need to start turning the corner. But it's great to see what all the update from Vahid is wonderful. Everything that Clackamas County is doing. I mean, all these issues are so different between the three counties. Obviously, the street level homelessness issue in Multnomah County is just way worse than in the other two counties. Yet here they are with less shelter beds this year than they had last year. And so to really dig in and find out why are things going the wrong direction in one particular, part of the region that is going to lower voter confidence in this program, despite progress in the other two counties is a challenge. But I am really optimistic that the team at Metro is on the same page. I think the county leaders are also in Clackamas and Multnomah County. They are on the same page, and I think there's new leadership in Multnomah County that's helping to turn the tide there as well. So thank you very much.
I'll say this: there's new voices at this table that weren't previously there. And they are voices. My voice has been often critical, but I don't mind, like, I think Joe, Mayor Buck, you've been there too. We'll be critical, but my God, our heart is to solve this. And I think finally, like, that different perspective and that different thing, maybe their echo chamber was deafening, but I feel like there is some opening right now for us to be effective with the new ideas and kind of accountability and local mindset. So that's what I feel like. And this has been not partisan at all. Like right now, the partisan kind of divides, I feel like, and for many of us are just kind of melted away. But I'm so hopeful, cross my fingers, that this is where we start to be effective. I know it's late coming, but that's where I see us right now.
Commissioner Lewis, and then Mr. Anderson, I'll need you to be super brief. Christine, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think this conversation is really at the right level, because we're at the really pivotal point with this work group, which is supposed to go through spring into summer. And we are at the opportunity to start talking about what measures we're going to use. Because when we pass this measure, the two metrics that were referenced were how much dollars we were going to get out the door every year, and we were going to house 10,000 people. And what does that even mean? House them once, keep them housed for longer than a minute, which 10,000 people. So it's long past time for us as a regional system to have better measures so that we can actually knit the system together. And yes, it's about proving it to voters, but it's also about systems change. The one thing I wanted to really lift is that it's so critical that we talk about what are the standards that all counties can move to. Because in the original IGA, if there was a county that was not performing or underperforming, the only remedy was another county coming in and taking over the contracting authority for that county. Obviously, with Multnomah County effing up everywhere, it's not on another county to come in and do the contracts for the county. It's actually for them to hold a different level of fiscal responsibility within the system, within the other two counties, and within Metro. So I think this is a really critical moment that we turn that tide, particularly because it's budget season right now. So I just want to add that context and thank Commissioner West for his leadership in putting those things on the table.
Councilor Anderson.
Yep. I appreciate you saying that, Councilor Lewis, because I do think that like so much of this is going to be accountability for Multnomah County. And you spoke to this earlier, Commissioner West, about really trying to push for that and get us on some aligned values. I guess my question to either of you would be, what does that accountability actually look like at this stage in the game for Multnomah County? What are you considering? And how amenable is Multnomah County to that?
I can speak to that a little bit. Those conversations are tender right now. They are hot, but there is, from when I'm having with the other electeds, there is some common themes. And I do think that we have to have the ability to not have a system fall apart when Multnomah County does not perform. With the goal of restoring that county back in the ability to do its good government functions that the voters expect it to do. So I don't want to speak to specifics. There are some ideas because I don't want to get ahead of it. But Councilor Anderson, I think that's the right question. But and I think maybe Councilor Lewis wants to jump in, but just out of like being a good partner and collaborative, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I do think that we can expect here in the near future some more ferreted out ideas about what that looks like. And I think there's momentum to see this happen through this work group.
I will hop in and say it's deeply connected to the measures because it won't be acceptable anymore to continue not only to fund providers, but literal program design that isn't proving it's effective in outcomes. So if we are not getting outcomes from a philosophy or structure of service, we might as well be setting that money on fire. So let's actually make the counties move towards the more effective outcome producing programs.
I agree with that. And this is the first time the region has actually taken the topic around recovery systems seriously and has been pragmatic, I think, in how we address this. Councilor Lewis and I have talked about this at length, and so have Mayor Buck and I. And so that to me means that we're allowing some innovation to happen. And I think that's what we're going to see also through the accountability process.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Vahid and Commissioner West. We're going to now move into the consolidated planning for transportation safety. Mr. Mark will be presenting.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joseph Merrick. I'm the County Traffic Engineer and the Traffic Safety Program Manager. And let me share my screen here. Oops. Oh. All right. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. So I wanted to discuss our, within the traffic engineering section, our comprehensive safe system planning project. It's a 2-year project with a budget of, it was around $1.1 million. And it's doing some pretty innovative stuff. And so I want to first start by looking at our crash data trends. And so in particular, when you look at 2018 to 2022, we are seeing some good decreases in crashes, and but we are seeing an increase in fatal and injury crashes, so not trending in the direction that we would like it to be trending. COVID was particularly challenging for traffic crashes, many high-speed crashes, And so that is presenting a challenge for us. We've seen some small shifts in population going from rural areas to urban areas. And we've actually seen some decreases in rural crashes and some increases in urban crashes, and that actually may be due to some of the investments that we've been doing the past 5 years or so on signing upgrades to our rural roads. So I'm suspecting that we're seeing some decent reductions in crashes due to those efforts that we've been working on. Our top 4 crash types that we're seeing are roadway departure crashes, aggressive driving, and inexperienced drivers. Those have been the same 3 trends since we did our first safety action plan back in 2010. The thing we are seeing creeping up is the impaired driving. In particular, we're seeing more alcohol and cannabis mixing. And so that is on the uptick as looking at our crash trends. We are embracing the safe system approach. We used to call it holistic traffic safety. The safe system approach is grounded by 5 fundamental tenets, including safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, and post-crash care. And then there's these critical principles to the safe system approach, including that death and serious injury is unacceptable, that we are humans, we make mistakes, that we are vulnerable to those forces of kinetic energy. So those impacts that break bones because they're beyond the threshold of what our body can take. Responsibility is shared, safety is proactive, and redundancy is critical. And so it's a very broad set of principles and goals. When you think about redundancy as an example, we think about the different elements, and it's kind of like the Swiss cheese model. If all the elements fail, we're going to have the crash. If the elements are successful, we aren't going to have the crash. So we're not going to make it all the way through the Swiss cheese. And that also occurs, within the different elements. A good example is if a person is a bar drinking and the server might stop them saying, "Hey, you've had a little too much. Why don't you let's get you a ride home." Or if they do drive, they end up crashing into a guardrail, which saves them from going off the cliff. But if none of that occurs, then the fatality could occur. So that's that redundancy concept. So working on there's 4 different elements to this project. So we have a engagement element, a triage element, the safe system readiness component, and the traffic safety action plan. So the community engagement part is focusing on how we're doing our outreach for our safety work. And it's kind of grounded in the fundamentals of civil rights and making sure that our outreach, we're getting to the populations that we should be getting to and the representation of the county. So looking at how our methods and practices for engaging community, developing our checklist for community engagements, making sure we're being inclusive with our language, providing resources for our citizen-based organizations. And we're also working on coordinating this with some of the other outreach efforts like our transportation system plan that is just starting up. And so that's an important project because we know that outreach is so important. So we understand where the issues and challenges are or where we're doing well so that we can improve those. This triage work is very interesting, and I'm definitely learning a lot because this is not my area of expertise. I'm an engineer, but if you have a crash in the county, a severe crash, there's actually a lot of trauma. We could have maintenance personnel that are first on scene, and so they could be actually, seeing things that are tough to unsee. They could be stopping family members that have arrived on scene that they can't let into the secured area because our crews will be out there, for example, to close the roads. The first responders, of course, there's a lot of trauma with things that they're seeing, both dealing with victims of the crash or a person that may be at fault with the crash. And of course, our medical professionals, they're doing the triage to get those persons out, get them to the hospital. So there's a lot of a trauma of seeing all of these things, and it impacts people. Engineering professionals, we see the statistics, we see what has happened on the road. We're trying to make that better, but that has an effect on us. And so, one of our goals is understanding these crash causes. How can we change culture to help prevent these crashes, as well as how are we deploying our countermeasures to prevent crashes? And those are countermeasures that may be infrastructure, may be other things like, trying to work with communities on culture change. Let's say we have a community and where they are from, their culture is not to wear safety belts. And so they tend not to wear safety belts. So there's a cultural issue that there's an opportunity to change. And so this is part of strengthening that post-crash care part of it, and trying to make sure that we're providing that support and the opportunity for change as part of our reducing fatal and serious injury crashes. So there's a number of components to this, including existing practices. This is kind of a new thing, actually, in the US. So our consultant team is working hard to find examples where this is occurring now. So we're going to be doing some questions, some interviews, looking at our crash data, developing a technical memorandum, and ultimately we're going to develop a guidebook that we can use as an agency and that potentially another agency could use. And of course, looking at our fiscal implications of if we were to implement this, what does this look like? The next area that we're doing is this safe systems approach readiness evaluation for the county. So I reviewed that safe system approach. And so part of this contract that we have is to actually look at the county and say, are we ready to deploy this? Can we deploy this? So we're going to evaluate the county's readiness to implement the safe system approach. And what is our willingness, or what is our state of being prepared to do something as an organization? And so there's a whole host of components: our engineering, road designers, our political leaders, contractors, consultants, our general public, our board of county commissioners, all of our safety partners. Are we ready to do this? Are there things that we have in place to do this? I think there are things that we do not have in place that we need to put in place. So this effort includes reviewing our current plans and processes, doing workshops with a number of our key collaborators, as well as working with key county staff and doing interviews to understand the state of our readiness, and then to create an evaluation report that summarizes, where we're at, what are the gaps, what do we need to do to implement this, listing our priorities and challenges and barriers to implement the safe system approach across the organization. The next project is our transportation safety action plan update. This will be iteration number 3. We did our first plan back in 2010. Actually, it was adopted in 2012. We updated it in 2019. And so we're updating it now. Transportation safety action plans are typically updated about every 5 years. So we're doing pretty good staying on track with that. And so as part of that plan, our goal is to eliminate fatal and serious injury crashes. We're definitely challenged with that, and we will be reviewing that goal. But clearly we're focused on those serious and those fatal and serious injury crashes. We want to look at all the data that we have and analyze and characterize our safety problems, identify our projects and strategies to most effectively reduce those safety risks, and do this under the guidance of the safe system approach. And to improve safety, think about those safety culture elements, increasing our collaboration, and also thinking about how we're doing this work slightly differently in anticipating this thing that human makes mistakes, and that mistake shouldn't kill them. And so this is very exciting to be working on this. So we're currently in the process of looking at all our existing crash trends and analysis and evaluating that current plan that we have. We'll be moving into defining locations that there's opportunity for improvement, as well as looking at this systemic approach, looking at corridors, looking at risk factors for improving safety. And then we'll go through our visions and goals, develop our strategies and actions. We'll create somewhat of a high-level infrastructure project list, supplementing what we already have today, and then prioritize those projects. And so this is again, our 4 different projects, that engagement work around our public involvement to make sure we're reaching people, all the people that we need to, that triage work, that safe system readiness, evaluation and implementation, and our transportation safety action plan update. And so this is a very quick whirlwind tour of this project. So I want to thank you, and I can answer any questions that you have.
All right, do we have any questions? Mr. Cernak, go ahead.
You noted an increase in serious injury and fatal crashes. Is there a noticed change in the makeup of the people being hurt or killed between modes? Is that changing?
That has not changed a lot. The modal crashes we've been seeing is motorcycle operators substantially overrepresented, pedestrians overrepresented, and then just regular vehicle crashes. And so there hasn't been a big change in that I've noted.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Milch.
I noticed that after that plane crash in Washington, D.C. earlier this year, there's a lot of attention on how when a commercial plane goes down, there's a lot of study trying to figure out why this happened, what were the causes, and all the rest. And so I'm glad you're looking at more of a triage approach to evaluate some of those things and make some changes. How quickly can we expect to see changes in road infrastructure and engineering and some of the other things that contribute to accidents or crashes, beyond the human error?
So you're talking about how we're designing the infrastructure?
How are we going to respond when, if triage from a crash shows us, boy, this road, the visibility is not good, or too many, driveways going in and out of a high-speed road, are we going to be able to quickly make changes in the engineering and design and speed limits and so on our roads when those factors contribute to crashes?
So for our county road system, we are constantly working on that. We have a plethora of safety projects that are being built. As an example, we over the past 5-6 years, we've invested somewhere around $3 million in sign updates on different corridors where we saw higher levels of crashes and curves and intersections. So we've been updating those signs. For low cost things, we can be pretty responsive. We are not chasing around the crash locations as much as we are trying to be very systematic and look at our whole system. Bigger projects we have to put into our budgeting process and fund them. And we're programmed out about 3-4 years on safety projects right now. And so those larger ones, we can develop the projects, but we have to get them into the funding pipeline. And we work with about $2 to $2.5 million a year for our safety budget. And then other work that we're constantly doing is safety related. All our maintenance work is really safety. We're constantly doing guardrail upgrades to particularly guardrail ends that can to protect the vehicle by absorbing the energy from the vehicle to prevent injury. So it's constantly occurring. And as we move into this next plan, we'll have another list of projects that we will look at moving forward through our processes and implementing them. The other thing too we've done in the county is we took over speed zoning from Oregon DOT a little over, well, it's been about a year and a half ago. So I have one full-time person working on speed zoning, and so we're getting more speed zone reductions out than we did when ODOT was doing it. And so that's another thing that we've been working on, trying to get these projects going, get them done, get them out there as soon as we can.
Commissioner Lewis.
You just brought up speed zoning, and I'm wondering if there's any movement from ODOT on releasing local control for our cities to do their own, particularly in areas surrounding public services like schools or other like community parks.
I don't know. I don't remember what the legislature says. I think any agency can apply to do speed zoning. You're still following the same laws.
Yeah,
It's
but
really
then
a
you have to
mat.
go to an ODOT committee that only meets twice a year. So it basically slows it down by like 2 years.
Well, that's only if you're appealing them.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. Do we have any other comments or questions regarding this topic this evening? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move into the Clackamas County Transportation System Plan update. I think we've got Ms. Burig and Mr. Owen here.
Wonderful. Good evening, C4 members. It's very nice to be with you this evening. My name is Karen Burig. I'm the Long Range Planning Manager, and I have been with the county for many years and was the project manager for the Transportation System Plan update project that we completed back in 2013. But we're here to talk today about the project we're going to just be kicking off right here. So I'm mostly here to introduce Jeff Owen. He is our relatively recently hired principal planner. He's been around for about 9 months with the county. And he's going to give you kind of a short presentation about this project, our project we are just kicking off. So Jeff, I'm just going to roll it over and hand it over to you.
Great, thank you very much. Let's see here. We'll share screen and aim to be brief here for you and happy to answer any questions that you may have. So in the great fun of transportation acronyms, we do have a few included here tonight, but I want to make sure and spell those out. So we will be touching on just a little bit of what is a transportation system plan, a TSP. I'll give you a little background. We do have some priority issue areas already established. We have a rough outline of our tasks and project schedule, expected outcomes, the state rules and pieces we have to comply with at the state level, and then a few steps we're taking already underway to prepare for those. A major theme here tonight is coordination, and you will definitely hear more about coordination. So a TSP, a Transportation System Plan, is a long-term outlook, provides policies, guidelines, and projects, most importantly, kind of ending on projects to meet the transportation needs all around the county for the next 20 years, specifically in unincorporated parts of the county. So it reflects all relevant national, state, and regional planning requirements and addresses both urban and rural areas. And it also is known as Chapter 5 of our comp plan, the comprehensive plan. So just one reminder, of course, here, images squeezed all onto one slide of what our collective transportation system looks like. It's many different things. It is not just one thing. So it's a little bit of all the above, all around the county. And so we have a few different ways we're going to be tackling all of these different modes. We have some planning and such underway for some of them more than others. But this is that comprehensive effort to kind of pull everything and reference it under one plan. We do have an existing TSP, just like every community. It has now been just over 10 years. So the last one was adopted in 2014. So much of the work and the data that went into that plan was the couple of years prior to that. So obviously a lot's changed in that period of time. And so there also have been, not only changes in kind of where people live and move and how they move, but also changes at the state level in the transportation planning rule. And so we're going to talk just a little bit more about that. There's also been significant updates at the regional level for the portions of the county that are within the metro boundary and the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan. Those have been some fairly recent updates, and that is also that planning effort will gear up again here fairly soon for the next update. So those last two updates have provided a bit of new pieces that we also need to consider in this update. We just had quite a bit of presentation on safety, and that is of course where we start with priority issue areas. We're starting with safety. We want to do better outreach and engagement than we ever have before to continue to improve on that front. We definitely are looking to incorporate outcomes of everything that does exist already and kind of these parallel efforts. We're not looking to redo anything that we want to incorporate and bring it all together. Comply with state and regional requirements. We're going to be doing a ton of interagency coordination with our state partners at ODOT, the Oregon Department of Transportation, all the jurisdictions kind of within the county and neighboring as well, and providers of different services. We know that our county is unique, both urban and rural areas, and part of what we know we need to do is identify and implement some strategies that do reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we need to consider possible impacts of potential new funding strategies. So we know we need to start with what we have and consider things that could be changing over the next 20-year horizon. This screen is just a sample of kind of some of the back end, a little bit of kind of tasks and timing. And so basically the main takeaway here for you is that we are just about to start. We will be using a consultant team and we are just about to get underway formally, but wanted to come to you at this early stage and make sure and let you know we're just about to get underway. We will be kicking off and then moving through the summer and fall and likely taking all the way through the end of calendar 26. So there's definitely time. There'll be many ways to be involved for the public, for leaders to really help us shape this plan all the way through draft and final versions. Wanted to touch on just a few of the outcomes that we expect. The number one here is a user-friendly online document. We have seen quite an advancement in technology and the way that folks are using technology, in the last 10 years. And so we want to make sure that part of what we have is a very user-friendly document. And then number two, it is also needing to exist in the format of Chapter 5 of the comp plan. So we do want, of course, those major pieces to comply with the TPR, the Transportation Planning Rule, and the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan. We are really starting to get excited, already getting underway with thinking about how to do the best engagement we can. We expect that these outcomes will include online maps, virtual open houses. We are looking to do geographic sub-area, GSAs, to make sure that we really have conversations within smaller portions of the county that are specific to just that area, since we know we are so large. Lots of workshops, focus groups, also making use of community engagement liaisons. These are really experts that have existing relationships with really important members of our community that we know we need to interact with. And then finally here, it's really, much of this work comes down to financial forecasting, cost estimating, and then prioritizing. And so following the structure of the existing TSP that we do have is kind of a tiered methodology, as well as number four, a kind of a regional list for things that are kind of beyond our immediate control. So tier one is the highest priorities. These are really the needed investments and projects matched with anticipated funding. So kind of thinking of it as what we can afford into the next 20 years. Tier two would be the things just behind that where there's a real strong need, but we can't quite tie it to anticipated funding. Number three there, tier three, is long-term projects that we definitely are hearing are beneficial from both data and outreach and engagement, but we would not have funding in mind for that. So we want to acknowledge it, but that's getting a little further afield. And then number 4 is really that way to acknowledge all the pieces of projects that are just beyond our control, such as state partners at ODOT. We do just want a quick plug here. We could really go down a rabbit hole of the different state rules that have been updated. We're not going to do that tonight, of course, but just want one slide reminder here that this work does tie into Goal 12, transportation from the transportation planning rules. So they are very specific and some things that we know we need to comply with and do. And so we are aware and getting that underway as well with state partners and metro partners and others. We are already getting started, even though we're not formally really underway just yet, but a grant has been received from the Oregon DLCD, the Department of Land Conservation and Development. This has allowed us to begin on a really important piece that's required called the Equitable Engagement Framework. This is an initial step that really helps set us up for the best engagement we can, and it's really developed to comply with state law. So this guidance is really rooted in requirements, and we're really excited about this work that's already underway. Specifically, there is a community profile and equity analysis. This will fulfill some of those requirements. You might have, of course, heard of CFEC, Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities. And so there's a few pieces here that, again, quickly get very deep. And so we will be doing quite a lot of work here to make sure that, of course, everything we do complies. And coordination is a major theme, of course, not only here in your group, but through our effort. We know that we have a big project in front of us. And so we really anticipate a lot of coordination with staff, with leadership, and acknowledgement with a lot of partners, including ODOT at the state level, a lot of routes that impact the county in one way or another. So finally, I know that was fast. I just wanted to make sure and plant a little seed. We're really just about to start. So this is a really great time to help give some input on what coordination issues are important to you as we move forward. So with that kind of pause, my contact information is in the packet there. And Karen and I both are happy to try to help answer anything we can tonight. Happy for your feedback.
Great, Jeff. Thank you very much. Councilor Anderson.
Thanks for coming and giving us this briefing, Jeff. You mentioned at the end, I was going to ask you about CFEC. Milwaukee's going through our TSP right now too. And I can say it's very different than TSPs in the past because of this new state rulemaking. What does CFEC look like on the county level? Do you have to then do extra incorporation with our regional and local plans? I guess that's first question. Second is maybe more of a comment for us. Today, the state legislature released their draft plan for a transportation package to look at different funding mechanisms. We maybe don't have time to talk about that tonight, but I certainly would love to talk about how that impacts all of this work in a future meeting. But Jeff, you speak to CFEC rulemaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome, Karen, to join in. Your second point there, I think, is your next agenda item to get an update on the state session. But yes, there is a lot of coordination already underway between partners regarding CFEC. Karen, happy for you to add to that. I know that you've been involved, I think, in Milwaukee's efforts as well.
Yeah. Yes. So we have definitely been a partner on the technical advisory committee. So I completely understand what you're saying, Councilor Anderson, with regards to the CFEC and the changes to the transportation planning rule is having us look really differently at our transportation system. So CFEC has made changes to a variety of different rules, different guidance, such as how we look at our pedestrian system, how we look at our bicycle system. It has provided us with guidance, and as Jeff was just talking about, how we even set up and frame up our engagement. And so that's the piece that we've really been looking at closely, really understanding our community in unincorporated Clackamas County, and making sure that when we do our engagement, we're reaching out to all of our communities. And then there are other rules about how we think about our our investments that we need to help us address some capacity issues, but some additional work needs to happen with a small set of projects. So not quite sure if I addressed coordination specifically. It happens with each different TSP needs to follow these rules, but coordination for Clackamas County is especially important because we have roads that interface every one of our jurisdictions.
Pratt.
Hi, excuse my ignorance here, but I see this is for the unincorporated part of Clackamas County, and I know we're almost through the process of our city's TSP. But what happens with like I know we have a project on a Clackamas County road identified within the city. So is there coordination between your TSP and our TSP, or only if it goes beyond our city limits?
So I'll just jump in. And so I would say, yes, there is coordination between, and I was just looking at the Tualatin TSP information today, because right, you guys are right at the end. And we do have those places where really those facilities overlap. And with Tualatin, it's both Washington County and Clackamas County. And, we really need to work together. So it all depends on the facility. Right. And so we have, let's say, a road like Borland Road, that maybe portions are Clackamas County roads and others might be under the city's jurisdiction. And so we work together on when either when development occurs and how improvements are being made during development. But we also think about how we can work together on kind of investing in those sort of joint infrastructure through different grant projects. So we do try to coordinate, but I want to also highlight what Jeff said. It's one of the reasons why we have a whole task in the Clackamas County TSP project about coordination. So we can make sure that we're talking with each of our cities individually to make sure we're addressing those particular kind of edge issues in the right way during our process.
Well, I like the part about looking together for funding, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Saunders.
Yeah. So thanks, Jeff, for your presentation. Could you, I'm not sure everyone understands this, and to some degree, I don't know what falls off. And what I mean by that is that our TSPs, fold into the regional transportation plan, right? We all submit those to Metro, and then Metro within the Metro boundaries has what we call our RTP. And, but for the rural areas, am I to assume that the state transportation plan is simply the state facility aspect of it, and the county owned rural and the city owned rural is really their TSPs, that's really their only source of funding for their city and county owned respective roads?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think one maybe tweak I would suggest is the TSP itself doesn't fund anything, but it's the collective encapsulation of those assumptions, and so it does try to match funding in a way that can be helpful across sometimes either across jurisdictional lines or really acknowledge where the stop and start is. So that's at least maybe just one piece I'd offer. And that's also a little bit of a snapshot. So they're updated every 10 years. So we do the best we can with that 20-year outlay, of course, and then update it roughly every 10. Karen, anything you'd like to kind of add on to that?
Well, I would say that also in addition that so in the metro area, there's the federal requirement that there be this coordinated plan, right? And so it's accurate to say that those areas outside of the MPO don't have that same requirement to have an integrated coordinated plan. But I would say, and I guess this is what Jeff was saying, is that those facilities that are outside the metro area do have access to a variety of funding sources. They may not have access to the federal funds that go directly through Metro, but they may have access to state funding or just discretionary federal funding.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I, what we do know, most of us know, I believe, is that the eligibility for funding in the metro area is greater because we have federal components of that. So there's more resources to tap in the metro region for our TSPs, RTP than there is for the rural areas, was really the point I'm trying to make. But I just didn't know. I just wanted to just validate that in the rural areas, if it's not a state facility, it's not going to be in the state transportation plan. It's going to be only in the county and city TSPs. The other thing I wanted to follow up on and just point out, because I've been spending a lot of time on transit here lately, and Councilor Anderson touched on something. I think I just want to make a point. I think there's we saw the package come out today. I think Trent will talk about that here in a little bit. But, when we talk about the climate aspect of what our transportation goals are and how we're going to address that, what I've heard, and a lot of us have heard, is that, transit is usually pointed out as the solution, right? Well, we've got transit for that, or we're going to do this. It'll be more bike ped transit, more transit. Except not accept, but unfortunately, the reality is it's first of all, because of the cost of housing, our rural areas are growing, bursting, and more people are moving farther away. So more traffic demands. And as far as Clackamas County is part of that, there's little transit out there or little connectivity to where the jobs are in the metro region. And there are employment areas certainly in the rural cities and the rural areas. But my point is this. We've got this, I would say a somewhat, and with love and respect, our rural transit providers in Clackamas County are doing awesome work, and they've been coordinating and working great, and they've been making a lot of connections that we didn't have before. So I want to acknowledge that, but more from a statewide and the county to some degree, we have a lot of areas where there's just no service, right? There's unserved transit areas. It's kind of disappointing today to see the package and to see all the money that's going towards all the maintenance and roads and everything else, but only a fraction of a percent for transit funding. So I want to make that point. So I don't know how we achieve our climate goals or CFAC if we're not putting the dollars in that are really going to make a difference in the areas at least we're experiencing where growth is. And certainly there's growth inside and outside the metro boundary, rural and urban. But we have a substantial population. Half the population in Clackamas County is rural, and half of that population is in cities, and half of it's unincorporated. So our TSPs and the little funding we have, and we'll get a little bit out of this package if it passes as is, but it really does not address the transit piece or the climate aspect. So that said, no question, no response needed. Thank you.
Mayor Milch.
Jeff, getting back to some of the acronyms you were using, you talked about TPR, Transportation Planning Rule. My understanding that goes back to a rule that Oregon had in their administrative rules that required cities to make their transportation plan and their land use planning both have the goal of reducing the number of vehicle miles traveled. But I got the impression from your talk that that's sort of evolving a little bit into some other directions. Can you say a little bit more about what that means currently?
Yeah, I'm happy to try a little bit. Thank you for that, and welcome Karen to add as well. I think it is my brief mention is trying to acknowledge that yes, there are the TPR rules in place and CFEC and so many other pieces that are kind of layered on. So there has been evolution, but there are some clear rules in place. So our consultant team as well that we're hoping to bring on any day now is going to help us with that as well, just to make sure that it is a complex environment that we do comply with many different levels. And there are lots of smart folks around the state trying to figure out how those pieces relate. But that's not a great answer to your question. But yes, they have been evolving. They do still exist and have been evolving.
Mr. Bashir.
Thank you, Mayor Hodson. Thank you, Jeff, for the presentation. In looking at the slides, I'm trying to figure out, is there a role for public transit providers? And I certainly want to give a shout out to Commissioner Savas. Been in the trenches with him for pretty much the 8 years that I've been here. He's a champion for public transit, and you know, we appreciate you very much. We being the small providers. But anyway, so Jeff, I'm just trying to understand what the role for transit providers might be, understanding that Clackamas County is very unique in that we have more public transit service providers, true public transit service providers, than say Multnomah and Washington counties combined. And so I'm wondering if we can leverage that, you know, as part of this plan. We all have our own transit master plans. And of course, the small providers, we work very closely together, coordinating on services and things like that. We're going to continue to do that, but I'm just wondering what role transit might play in this TSP, in this upcoming update.
Absolutely. It will be an important role. We will definitely invite SMART and all the rest to the table to help us as part of our committee structure and coordination. There's definitely a role, and we are trying to also acknowledge the separate but complementary transit development plan. And so that's a piece that does exist, and that's also on the horizon to be updated soon. So I know that's not a perfect answer there, but yes, lots of involvement is welcomed, and we want to acknowledge the separate piece that is the transit development plan.
Yeah,
All
and
right. You know,
I was going to just add on, just similar to what Jeff said, is that this transportation system plan project is bringing together many different plans and all different modes. And so we did work closely with all of the different providers. And I think it was about 5 years ago now to create a Clackamas, the first Clackamas County Transit Development Plan. So we'll be using that initially. But we also have teed up an update of that transit development plan that hopefully will get started, I don't know, 6 months, perhaps 9 months from now. But we'll be working together. And so part of the transportation planning rules do talk directly to transit. So we'll be needing to comply with what the rules say, and then we'll be folding in the information that we have, and then working with our transit providers to make sure things are updated.
I appreciate that, Karen. And those of you who know the coalition of small providers of Clackamas County know that, and I speak for all of us, all of them, we want to be part of the solution moving forward, and we stand ready to help.
Thanks, Dwight. Appreciate that. Councilor Anderson.
Commissioner Savas has me all hot and bothered after his transit comments, because I would agree. I think that like we're seeing real state push to get us to be more dense, which has a host of benefits. It protects our farmland, our natural resources, gets us closer to climate goals. But as the state does that, it also is not funding the transportation systems necessary to allow for that density. And to me, it's completely like, it's just so backwards that the state is not helping local governments adjust to the mandates that they're putting on us. And so I think that as we look at the transportation package, the stiff increase, the statewide transportation improvement fund is nowhere near what it needs to be able to fund improvements in service, much less. Like this is a cuts budget that they're putting forward, and it's a tax-free increase to get to a cuts budget. And so similar to SHS, when we have dollars that can make an impact in our communities and take us in the right direction, I think it's important to lean in. And it's a conversation that I think we should be having as a county and elevating to the state level.
All right. Any other comments on the topic tonight? Going once, going twice. All right, we're out. Mr. Owen, thank you very much for the presentation. Karen, it's good to see you as always. All right, we're going to move next is Mr. Trent Wilson with, I'm sure, a short list of legislative updates.
So short, just a record number of bills introduced in the state legislature this year, and so I'll try to keep it brief. I hear you loud and clear that you want to talk about transportation pieces, and so I'll cover everything else first so that you have as much time as you want to have on transportation. The first thing I want to say is how great it was to see a number of folks from this screen here on Tuesday night to talk about the Willamette Falls locks request, and so great to see that coalition show up. For those of you who want to continue supporting that, that is House Bill 2574. That has been a priority project of the county and Westland, as well as C4 in the past. And so for it to be continuing to move and have momentum, I just want to say kudos to that crew. I also want to flag a bill that's important to Clackamas County, and you heard Commissioner West talk about the recovery campus earlier. And that is, there's a number of pathways that we could fund that, but we are looking for state funding there at the tune of about $20 million, just $20 million. But there is an opportunity to do that in House Bill 2059, where the governor has requested $90 million to advance treatment bed capacity in the state. And I believe there's a desire to either programmatically earmark some of those projects, and we are included in a package group there with Healthshare Oregon. So that hopefully is a vessel that is fruitful to that recovery campus here in Clackamas County, as well as treatment beds here within the region. So really want to flag those two bills at large for being good for Clackamas County. More thematically for what I want y'all to be aware of at the state level, and I would be happy to defer to our folks who work in the actual House offices there in Salem with me, but I'll just frame this up in three different ways. General fund is tight. Lottery dollars are oversubscribed, and the Ways and Means co-chair are recommending a more conservative approach to dollars that are distributed, partially, but I'd say really in response to the turbulence that we are starting to see, have been seeing for a couple months now at the federal level, which is creating uncertainty in a lot of funding that funds social programs or social service programs, or even library programs and other programs across the nation, which of course we have a lot of federal touch points here in Oregon. That is trickling down into your cities and into the county. It's creating a lot of uncertainty, both at the local level, but also at the state level, who is, I think, wrestling with this question of who will this fall on if there are programs that we want to see continue, if there's going to be uncertainty at the federal level. So I just want to flag that that's like the feeling in the hallway, so to speak, as the legislature is trying to figure out what does a budget for Oregon look like, and how do you prepare for really the unknown here in the coming few years, both at the economy level, the federal resource level. I mean, those are just things to be aware of, but it's heavy on the minds of many legislators as I walk into each of the offices, and perhaps as you're making phone calls too. Council President Anderson said this earlier, you know, that does have a feeling that the state is making some things hard on local governments to implement transportation initiatives. And I would say that also extends to other touch points for local governments. I'm really mindful of some of the areas of heartburn that we are having right now as some of the land use bills are advancing at the legislative level. That affects all of your planning offices and our planning office in different ways. There are several governor-focused bills that I really would invite you to pay attention to. It's House Bill 2138 and House Bill 2258. 2138 is a missing middle bill, so it kind of creates a little bit more tightening and clarity around how the governor wants to advance some land use objectives through missing middle work. I also want to flag the House Bill 2258. These bills have had some hearings, but they're not, you know, in full motion yet. This would allow LCDC to set specific rules that would allow a developer to, if they reach a few certain criterias, to maybe even bypass the local land use process. And so kind of going around that local land use process that we all have been working to set up. I think the frustration that I hear from AOC and LOC, Association of Oregon Counties, League of Cities, and other local governments who are working there is just over the course of about 3 to 4 long sessions now, the legislature has really pushed and pushed and pushed on adding to your planning offices, to our planning offices, additional state level controls that we have to implement and then change, and implement and then adjust, and implement and then change. There's a lot of fatigue, and I would say rhetoric from our planning offices that we still are trying to implement what was passed 2 years ago and 4 years ago, and then to try to wrestle with what do these new bills mean in terms of adjusting what we've just implemented, or to readjust what we're trying to do before we see the results of bills that have already passed. There's frustration with the volume of change by a lot of our local offices. I'm sure your planners would probably feel similar or the same if they're following it, but I wanted to flag those bills for you too. There's one more bill that I would invite you just to be aware of. I don't know if it has full legs, but it's House Bill 3062. If you have warehouses or industrial lands or distribution centers, please do take a look at the more recent amendments of that bill and call somebody if you have feelings about it. I'm going to stop there on the land use things because y'all have been very clear about a desire for some transportation pieces here, conversation. Number one is that there is a House bill out there. It's 3925. That is a Sunrise Corridor bill. That is a bill specific to a project here in Clackamas County. It's asking for $30 million in lottery bonds. Remember that I said lottery bonds are oversubscribed earlier. That's still a true fact. That is also still a priority project for us. That is not the full extent or cost of the Sunrise program and the good work that our Department of Transportation Development and Happy Valley and ODOT and Metro have been working on together to craft a vision for that area. It is a little bit of money towards a very critical intersection to keep the ball rolling in that way. And so we are working hard to get that bill and that project some airtime in front of the legislature, and in particular the Joint Committee on Transportation. But as we'll spend the rest of our time talking about, there is a transportation framework package that is occupying the good minds of our transportation leaders in the halls of Salem. So after I'm done talking, I'll put a link in the chat that has, or you can Google it, the Oregonian article that has as many details as you can get right now on the transportation package. It is a framework, and as all of you have had developments in your city, you know that when you pass a neighborhood that's under construction, the frame of a house is not what the end result of the house will look like. It is just the sticks and the foundation of the conversation that's being started. Take all of this with a grain of optimism or doubt or whatever, but it's not the end all package. There are going to be some big numbers that I'm about to say. It will be more expensive to drive a vehicle, own a vehicle, have a vehicle, be a vehicle here in the state of Oregon moving forward. And so that is the call that we've heard from ODOT and many other local jurisdictions as well, that there is a huge problem to fund operations and maintenance. And so you are going to see that be front and center in the package that you read there in the Oregonian and in the days to come as more of this gets released. So top of the line here is that there will be a number of increases to gas tax, vehicle registration fee, title fee, weight mile tax. That's more for heavy vehicles. I think the big number that people are going to center around is a 20-cent gas tax increase proposal. But ultimately, this leads to about 1.7 to 1.9, give or take, billion dollars per biennium into the state highway fund. Now, what is so far very clear, and this was a priority for you and many others, including LOC and AOC, is that 50, 30, 20, 50% to the state, 30% to cities, 20% or 30% to counties, 20% to cities, has remained intact in this framework, except for a couple of little bitty things that are coming off the top. I don't know how little bitty or not those are going to be, but in general, that 1.7-ish billion is into the state highway fund for the purposes of operations and maintenance. And the co-chairs of the Joint Committee on Transportation have been super clear. This is a O&M package. This is not a projects package. The last two packages, 2017, 2009, those were the project packages. This is fixing an O&M problem that we have been trying to struggle with. And as Council President Anderson said, tax increases to get back to a level of service that we have an expectation for as taxpayers and constituents is really what they're trying to get to. It's daunting to say that out loud, that like this is what we need to get to the level of service that we want to be at. But that is how this framework is shaken out so far. Keep in mind, $1.7 billion per biennium is really only, if you break it down into that 50% category, it's only about a quarter of what ODOT was asking for just 6 months ago when they were saying they needed $1.7 billion per year. That package would be astronomical. What is not in that $1.7 billion, as far as I can tell, or as far as you can tell from the Oregonian, is that seems to be with the traditional funding mechanisms. It does not include in that calculation, as far as I can tell, anything related to the road user charge. And there is a desire in the framework to start to implement and roll out the road user charge. And so that'll take place over the course of a couple of years, as I understand it. And that will go into the state highway fund as well. And so I think the expectation, as we've been talking about, it is not that it will be on top of that 1.7 or $1.9 billion a year. It could be. But more like the gas, what we've been saying all along is the gas tax revenue is a declining source of revenue. So you need something to start to ramp up. And so I think at least for now, I honestly don't know, but maybe the expectation is that they're going to meet in the middle somewhere. As one goes down, the other will go up, and it'll kind of level out what they're actually producing for the drivers who choose the different vehicles. To be determined. There are several new taxes that are proposed in the framework. One of those is a system use fee for all vehicles purchased. That'll be a 1% system use fee. And it is, the way that I understand what was written in the Oregonian and what was discussed today in Salem, is that that'll also mostly go into the state highway fund, but for some of the initial dollars, I think it's roughly $250-ish million, will go to pay for some of those investments that are already obligated to ODOT. And so I want you to hear from those like big projects that have been talked about so far. Rose Quarter, I-205, Dundee, Newburgh Bypass, Center Street Bridge in Salem, and then the Hood River White Salmon Bridge. However, what I want to be very clear about is that when I say those big five projects, I mostly mean in Salem, they're talking about, when they say I-205, they just mean the Abernathy Bridge. They do not mean phase 2. That's very clear. It's not very clear in the Oregonian article. It's not very clear in the sheets of paper that are, being shown to folks in Salem. My intel is that does not include phase 2. So we can come back to that in a minute. Some of the other pieces of increases include a simplifying the HCAS, the high capacity folks, and for the heavy freight people, rail increase fees, transit increase fees, and Councilor President Anderson mentioned that a minute ago, and so did Commissioner Savis. An increase in bike tax for those bicycles that are over $200. I think it's $15. It'll go up to a new number, I think about $25-ish or just under that. So again, I think what you want to talk about there is, there is a framework. It is largely an O&M package. It is a lot of money to cities and counties. And that 50-30-20, which has been a primary principle for C4 the last couple of years, is there. And it's, I would say, pretty solid, very comfortable. What you will probably, and the transit money is not there. I think that is a really critical thing for y'all to talk about. Right now, the STIF funding is at 0.1% or a tenth of a percent of payroll tax. So every one of you who pays taxes, if you look on your paycheck, you will see that there's a line item down there, and it's a tenth of a percent. I believe the proposed increase does not double that. It barely gets close to doubling that. It would go like a 0.08 of a percent higher. So from 0.1 to 0.18. But I think you will also hear from many of and this is what Council President Anderson was talking about, the Oregon Transit Association, TriMet, Lane County, Transit District, Chariots, others, that they are collectively talking about a need to raise the STIF to no less than 0.4 or a fourth of a percent to reach a level of service that does not include cuts. So those are the larger transit agencies in the state. And I know for the smaller agencies, y'all have different funding mechanisms sometimes. Some of y'all have municipal mechanisms, some of you are just in different settings. So I want to flag that, like, in terms of a need for increase to get to service level, the larger transit agencies in the state are saying we're not even a third of the way there in terms of a proposed increase at the framework level. So an increase helps all transit agencies. I want to be very clear about that. While I'm saying that, as you know, in regards to like the larger transit agencies, as Dwight was saying, we have the most transit providers in a single county, I think, in the state. And so if a stiff goes up, it goes up for Wilsonville, Canby, Sandy, Malala, the Mountain, and then the communities in and around Oregon City where we operate a lot of our shuttles for Clackamas County. And so there are plenty of, did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody there. There are plenty of opportunities where like increased transit funding is increased programs to your communities here within Clackamas County. Broadly speaking, of course, that's an increase to TriMet as well. They serve, I would say, the bulk of our residents, at least in terms of district size, and where our urban areas and densities are. So for those of you who are strong advocates of transit funding, and there are many in here, call your legislator, let them know how you feel about that. Take action. You have an opportunity to do that. That's the value of a framework, is to get to say what color of paint you want on that frame. You know, once it gets the siding on it, you tell them what color of the paint you want it to be. Tell them what kind of windows you want on that frame. Help them build the final product of the house they're building. If we're using that framework analogy here, there's opportunities to do that. This is just the starting point of that conversation. And for those of you who want phase 2 of I-205 to be continued, and I would say that is a top priority for Clackamas County, and Commissioner Savis and I and the rest of the Board of County Commissioners will get to have a good conversation on Tuesday morning to talk about some of those things. You know, call your legislator and tell them about, you know, why you want that. And the first question you're going to get is, okay, but do you want to toll it? And so be prepared for that question, because it was the first question that I got today when I brought it up. And so I want to just encourage you, like, it is an expensive project. And there is a reason that why they've broken it out this way. In December, ODOT the OTC really chose to bond to fund the Abernathy Bridge, fund the remainder of the Abernathy Bridge. Remember, in 2021, there was House Bill 2030 or 2030-55. It brought that rose quarter penny over to the Abernathy Bridge. It became a flexible penny, and then they needed to get rose quarter started, so they sent it back over there after the toll program failed. It's super complicated. It's a different meeting for us to have, but they had already started the bridge project, so they needed to fund the bridge project. And the OTC made the decision to use the bridge highway funds and put it into the Abernathy Bridge so that they could fund their commitment. That funding commitment for the Abernathy Bridge, this is going to be a mind-blowing number. It was to me, because it's a $500 million bond that they put on the Abernathy Bridge to fund it. That's how expensive that project is a debt obligation of over $80 million of biennium. And it jumped in front of about 50 plus other little projects in the bridge program in order to meet that obligation. And so there is a desire by the state to relieve that debt obligation so that those small projects can get back in the line that they had already been in, because tolling was, in the legislator's mind, supposed to pay for I-205. It's an important caveat that I like to say. I know that there are different people who feel differently about what tolling was supposed to do and when it was supposed to do, and many of you here we've had that conversation. We've beaten that to death, but they see the package as removing that debt obligation by finding that funding. And so they really want to focus on Rose Quarter, getting that moving, the Abernathy Bridge obligation, because it's currently under construction. Whatever is remaining kind of goes into those other 3 projects that I mentioned. And then that kind of leaves phase 2 in a spot. And to move it forward, this group and the board and others, I believe it will become incumbent upon you. If that is still something that you want to see move forward, we will need to have a conversation about how to advocate for that and how to fund it and what you're willing to support to fund it in And so it doesn't have to be tolling if there's a different mechanism that you support, but you can already tell there's a lot of increases happening here. And so that's no small thing for any elected official to try and go advocate for. So I'm painting that picture of some of the hard questions you might need to be thinking about here as you go to sleep here tonight. That's all the update I have. I'm here to answer any questions that I can answer. As a lot of information. Thanks for listening.
Trent, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. For me, I think it's a mixed bag of frustration and really, frankly, disbelief in what's occurring in that regard. Just on the transportation front, we won't even get into land use pieces that are being proposed by the legislature. Again, the continued erosion of home rule and setting our own destinies as cities and as a county. It's frustrating for us. We just had a conversation last night at the city council for Canby. We were one of the first cities to implement a street maintenance fee back years ago, and we're having that conversation about we didn't put any inflationary pieces on it, so we've seen it diminish to what we're able to do, and now we're looking at doing something just for us, and now that's going to compete in a major way. That's more out of the citizens of Canby's pockets to take care of roads and be able to invest in future opportunities. So frustrating and feel like a little bit like bouncing my head off a cinder block wall a little bit on that. Commissioner Savas and then Commissioner Morrow.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Trent, for the presentation. I just want to speak to you all about the 205 project, especially those communities, cities that are closest to it. So West Lynn, Oregon City, who are closest to this, and Gladstone to some degree as well. You're really going to need to talk to your respective state legislators and see if this is something, if it's still important to you all, diversion, all the impacts, then you're going to have to speak up, and we'll be with you there. And it's kind of too early right now for us to be a C4, and obviously not tonight because we're kind of late already, but I just want you to be mindful that you're going to have to, councils are going to have to take a position and again, speak to your respective folks. I went to Salem this week twice, and Mayor Hodson, I want to say I was going to wave to Canby when I drove by, but when I looked at my navigation, the fastest route to get there was going through Canby on 99E. So I did not spend it on 205. The point is that diversion affects us all, and I just want to point that out. The other thing that I learned on my way to Salem, especially on Tuesday morning, was just so you're aware, while that 0.8% or that increase from 0.1 to 1.8, I mean, if that sticks, be mindful that's probably not going to be, as I learned, a means to more transit opportunities for expansion. Because what I heard, not unlike ODOT talking about their O&M maintenance crisis or just trying to pay the bills, it sounds like, and I want to have greater detail, I'm going to dig deeper on this, but I heard some of the larger transit agencies, TriMet in particular, don't doubt their financial crisis, but they're really talking about, I heard the word crisis, transit funding crisis, used many times. And so that's why, as Trent said, they're asking for a 0.4 or a 0.4 up or up to 0.4, 0.5 versus 0.18. So be mindful that if we're going to have expansion. Now, I know that, Dwight, I appreciate your comments yesterday morning, actually at a different meeting, that some agencies are probably not in that deep of trouble. I think it sounds like Wilsonville Smart is in better financial shape. So I would like to learn more about the magnitude of all the transit agencies around the state and figure out what this crisis is all about. I know insurance is going up. I know payroll's going up. I know fuel prices are going up, and I know that the cost of vehicles is going up. But I didn't realize it was that significant. If there's more to it, I need to learn that. But I just thought everyone to know that if transit is something important to y'all, We're going to need to speak up there on that issue as well. And I'll just stop there. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Marl.
Thank you, Mayor Hodson. I will keep this quick to one comment. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'll just, given the time, I will keep it to one thing. So I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention one of the funding mechanisms that I don't think it has been brought up yet is the proposed tire tax. And when you look at the details of what is proposed to be funded by that tire tax, and with the recognition that this is a framework and that this is going to change, 50% of that would go to rail, 25% of that would go to wildlife crossings, and 25% of that would go to salmon habitat restoration. And so looking at everything that's come out communications wise about this framework, they're trying to spin it as a back to basics framework. And I think that as this goes through the legislative process, that it's incumbent upon us to hold them to ensuring that it is a back to basics framework, because while I am not opposed to investing in salmon habitat restoration and wildlife crossings, I would really like to see us invest in human crossings, which are also known as bridges. So I just wanted to highlight that for folks that there are some things that are in there that if they were going toward highway maintenance and operations would not be as objectionable, but there are going to be plenty of groups who want their projects to be done, us included, that are going to try and find ways to do things that are tangentially related to transportation. So I just wanted to highlight that for folks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I don't know how many animals can read the bridge crossing signs. I'm anxious to see how that works out. Commissioner Lewis.
Sure. Thank you for the really good overview. I would love for this group to be able to dive in deeper. For me, it feels not only like we need to have a conversation about which projects are important, but which ones feel really ripe. And some of that is based on other funding opportunities and looking at things like Sunrise, which has other funding in the mix as needing to be something that's a green button this session. The one project that is probably in the longer term, but hasn't been talked about, but the Boone Bridge, you know, I was with Mayor O'Neill on a couple of strategy talks, and we've really got to kind of get our arms around what the short, medium, and then long term is, because if we're going to get the state to get attention to it, we have to fix some of the shorter term stuff that they can't themselves do, but locally we can better position kind of lay of the land, landscape, land use stuff. Mayor O'Neill, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but that seems like kind of an outstanding question just along with the third lane on 205.
Most definitely. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that, Commissioner Lewis. Mayor O'Neill.
You can steal my thunder anytime. Well said, because that's what I'm really concerned about. Boone Bridge is not even in the crosshairs. It needs to be replaced. It needs to be done, and I appreciate all your help, Ms. Lewis, on those meetings. I'm going to have coffee tomorrow with our Congresswoman to try to nudge it a little bit further. But I'm frustrated. I'm also divided. I've said this before, it's like a mixed bag here. You know, we need to have this funding for transportation, but 34% of my community is struggling to make ends meet with tariffs and everything else. I don't know how this is going to shake out to where, and we have 82% of our community, like a lot of cities, that commutes elsewhere to work. So when you're making it more expensive for people to own a car, more expensive for them to travel, I don't know how we're going to connect the dots. And as this young mayor, at least not young in age, but young in experience, to deal with the complaints that I have in every city council meeting about these unfunded mandates they're depriving 1 million of our general fund on top of this. It's a problem. So anyway, sorry I wasn't short, but I wanted to vent there for a second.
Mr. Wilson.
Yep, just a closing thought. I mean, those are all good comments, and I am mindful of opportunities that we've had in the past to have like quick huddles with some of the mayors and legislators who have been advocates for the 205 program being included in different things. And so there's already a little momentum to put some of those rooms back together. And so for those opportunities, we'll be doing some outreach. There will be opportunities for C4 to ask various questions here. And so we'll make sure that the evolution of this has some airtime at the upcoming C4 meetings for you to continue to talk about this at the big group. But there might need to be like a small group, huddle and a strategy group that talks about the I-205 program. What I really want to encourage you though about is there is no tolling in that framework. And I know that a lot of people blame Clackamas County as a group for killing tolling. I would just say that, at large, we were not the only ones who were frustrated with the program that was there. That became a regional opposition, but in part to the good work and due diligence and detailed deep dives that you all did here through some of that work to, I'll just say it this way, it's okay to not want a bad product. I think that's fine. So, and I think you've shown that there's not really elected momentum to push that as a product for the transportation package. However, I do want to flag that outside of the state, mega projects are becoming so expensive that across the Big River, over in the state of Washington, in their transportation package, they have just removed all of their mega projects from their transportation project. And so outside of the I-5 bridge, that is to say, that's still safe. That's still safe, everybody, their investment. But, it's just going to show that like without those big investments, those big tax increases, it's becoming more and more expensive, maybe too expensive to do some of those big projects. And that's being felt not just in Oregon. So I just wanted to flag that for you today. But we'll bring people together in a huddle and have opportunities to strategize.
Thanks, Trent. I appreciate that. And we got to get wrapped up. I know we're well over our time limit here tonight, and I think this last piece was good conversation. So I think it's a question for you, Trent, as you read the tea leaves and you're down there in these conversations, and maybe for you as well, Commissioner Savas, how much of all of this that you just laid out here tonight, Trent, we talked, tax on tires and gas fees and all those things, how much of that is to get that conversation back to the tolling to say, hey, if you get behind tolling, we can pull a bunch of this stuff off of here. And it's not nearly as impactful as if we go tolling route. Is this a dangling for a potential bait and switch kind of thing? Like
I'm going to say some things that I have heard. Do not tie this to a trend opinion or anything, but as projects become more expensive and as these dollars increase, I mean, just to get back to a level of O&M here with the amount of money that I just laid out and that's laid out in the Oregonian article, adding projects on top of that are in the hundreds of millions or in the billions of dollars is a daunting task for the state legislature to think about. And so they are concerned, and you're not going to believe me when I say this, they do not believe, some legislators do not believe that there is enough local skin in the game for the projects that state legislators have to take hard votes on. So tolling actually is a very popular, don't say it out loud sort of belief that many legislators have, because it is if I use it, I pay for it sort of system. Now, the work that y'all did showed that it doesn't work in all places perfectly. It's not a cut and paste program. And I want to be very clear about that. There are places that it works better, but I think after this package, my expectation here is that for those people who do want projects, who are willing to take on a toll to get those projects, they will have probably momentum or success to get them in future legislatures. That's my expectation, because that's what I'm hearing some legislators talk about, is if you want a project, how can you pony up at the local level? How can you make it so that state legislators aren't the only ones taking the hard votes? And that's why we've been getting the question of, if not tolling, then what? What are you willing to support, or what are you willing to help with? And so I think for the big highway projects like 205 and Rose Quarter, which are those like staples that have been here for a while, certainly frustrating. I think that there's a broad appeal to understand that. But then there are those projects, and I'm not trying to call them out, please don't say that I am, like the Center Street Bridge is a state highway, but it's in the middle of a city. And so it has that complication of like, who is the user, who is the local investment, piece there. The roads on the coast, right? And so those bridges that are expensive and they're on a state highway, but and some of them's tourism related. And so you see efforts to try to tackle or pinch away at like the TLT, the transit lodging and taxes, to use it for transportation too. Like there's a lot of ways to approach some of those things. So where there is support for local investments and that is where legislators want to see future mega projects get funded in that way. So while I don't think there is a momentum or effort or interest to toll anything this particular session, it's not going away. That's going to come back because of just how expensive this all is. I'll say this too. Those are big numbers that I laid out, and it is a framework. There is still a broad interest to make this a bipartisan transportation package. And I think that is actually good for everybody. That's good for the state of Oregon when you have a bipartisan transportation package. And largely speaking, transportation packages are bipartisan. So I kind of expect these numbers to wiggle a lot of it, not a little bit. Like maybe it's not 20, maybe it's 15 or 18. Maybe it goes up to 25, but they lower the registration number. I mean, I don't know what the end result's going to do, but there's going to be some tug of war on these numbers. These are not going to be the final numbers, but I think they are a good showcase of what it takes to get to the numbers that we're talking about. And I want to say it again. Remember that ODOT was saying they needed $1.7 billion per year, back in December. This really only gets them to 850 million a biennium. So it's a quarter of what they said they needed. Now, take the $1 billion county error out of the equation, but like that, it takes a lot of money to raise the amount of money that we're talking about. And so there's going to be a lot of push and pull on those numbers, how big they are. I just wanted to flag that, like, it's not the final thing, but there's opportunity for some negotiation, I think, to make this a bipartisan bill. I'm hopeful that it gets there, but it will ebb and flow the amount of money that we all get in 50, 30, 20 and the projects that get funded as a result of that. Was that diplomatic enough on that one? I don't know. It's a complicated question.
No, you threaded that line pretty well there, Wilson. Thank you. All right. We're gonna go quickly. JPAC, any updates?
Councilor Lewis, if you want to jump in and help, I'll cover the RUFA discussion. There were the 5 projects. There was some last minute adjustments that were made. I think there's still a level of uncertainty, but our $15 million ask was reduced to 12.5, and that was actually 10 million of that was going to come out of RUFA step 1. And the 2.5 is projected to come out of either a reapportionment of what step 1 and 2 or step 2. And our concern was it would put other projects for step 2, like the Gladstone Bridge and others, in jeopardy. So, and I'm talking about the bridge between Gladstone and Oregon City, the old trolley bridge. So we're very concerned about that. Councilor Lewis was very helpful. Councilor Lewis, I'm going to turn it over to you for a quick ad.
Sure, yeah. So step 1, Sunrise is in, public comment period is open. So do give public comments. We want to see both strength and in numbers and depth. I will say if we do use a solution of step 2, it's not actually looking at 2.5 from the bottom. It's actually, amortized over the number of like 4 or 5 cycles of the bond repayment. So it's only several $100,000, but still a worthy thing to think about what is both the precedent, but also the impact to other projects. Bringing up step 2, again, that is a set of projects that have already been submitted. And then we have 6 step 2 projects in Clackamas County, and we have an almost concurrent public process to begin to synthesize Step 2, which has gone through a basic scoring, but with step 2, it's always a lot of political dynamics, and the Metro C4 and this body will be asked for recommendation later in summer. The other action we took at JPAC and then took the concurrent vote at Metro Council was Rose Quarter. So in order to move forward with Rose Quarter, phase 1A, which is southbound lane and some of the bridge or connectivity, but not the full cap. We have to reprogram the MTIP. So it passed, I believe it was unanimous with a kind of messy amendment at JPAC. And then we passed it at Metro Council with 1 abstention and 1 no vote. But Rose Quarter on its path to moving forward to get its federal funds.
Right. Summer retreat update, Miss Lorenzini.
Thank you. Being very brief, contracting is out of the way, and we'll come back at a future meeting.
Okay, perfect. The RFFA letter.
Yes.
Yes, Jamie, go ahead.
Last month, C4 provided feedback and support for a letter to be prepared in support of the Sunrise project under consideration through step 1 of the RUFA regional bond process. A copy of the letter that was submitted onto the record is included in tonight's packet.
Right. That's one thing I think this group has done an amazing job over the last number of years is we keep throwing punches and keep making things known out in Clackamas County. So it starts with this group. So great job, everyone. Thank you for hanging in there tonight. We did some crazy things that are going on and we got to keep track of it all. So thank you, Trent. Thank you, Jamie, for your hard work on that. I know it's a group effort there at the county. So I don't think we have anything else to discuss, do we? I'm seeing a lot of head shaking no. So Miss Pratt, will you give us a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Thank you.
Second.
We'll give it to Kenny. All right. Good night, everyone. See you next month.